We're going to get fantasy implications based off offseason moves, the NFL draft, any coaching changes, and see if we can get you ready for your fantasy football drafts. Now, the first one I'm going to start off with, I'm going to actually start off with the AFC East first. I'm going to start with the team that I think is the most boring, even within the AFC East. And the reason I'm starting off with the AFC East is these are going to be the first couple of shows. So if I have any mess ups, it's on the most boring teams out there, like the Miami Dolphins, which is what we're doing today. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan, at least think of it this way. You're probably going to end up with a really high draft pick. Hopefully next year you're going to get a rookie quarterback, and there's going to be reason to be excited, just like the Jets are excited. The Bills are excited this year based on their rookie quarterbacks that they drafted. Now, the first thing I want to talk about with the Miami Dolphins is typically their offseason moves and their coaching staff. So coaching staff, they didn't really make a change. Well, they didn't make a change, I guess. Adam Gase is the head coach still. They did change offensive coordinators. They went and got the Bears offensive coordinator. But if you watch the Bears last year, that's nothing to be excited about. They averaged just over 16 points a game. And he comes over to the Miami Dolphins team that last year was 28th in scoring and 25th in offensive yards. Okay. So with that being said, I don't see a lot of changes. Adam Gase is that type of coordinator, the type of head coach that calls the plays on the offense. That has been the case most of the time he's been head coach. And I don't see that changing with the new guy that they brought over from the Bears. So I don't see a lot of things changing in this offense from a perspective of how the games are going to be called. But maybe maybe the personnel is going to have an issue. And I actually think the Miami Dolphins got worse this year than they were last year from a personnel perspective. They lose Jarvis Landry, Mike Pouncey, they lose Jay Cutler. And on the defensive end, the biggest loss, of course, was Ndamukong Suh. Now, that's not that defense doesn't really affect fantasy that much, but I will say that I'm not even touching the Dolphins this year with a 10-foot pole based on the fact that they lost Suh, which was basically the thing that made them as good as they were, which was still not that good. All right. Now, starting with the quarterback, I say Ryan Tannehill is a better quarterback than Jay Cutler was. And I think most people would agree with that. That being said, I think that unless Tannehill does something big this year, he's going to be cut. They're going to move on for him. Maybe he's not cut. Maybe they bring in a rookie quarterback next year and they do kind of the situation like they're doing with Joe Flacco, where they let him come in as a starter, but eventually the writing's on the wall. There's a quarterback here to replace you. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Ryan Tannehill. The only reason you'd be looking at Ryan Tannehill is for like 2 quarterback leagues or dynasty leagues where basically all the quarterbacks are rostered. I put him down at the bottom. I do think Ryan Tannehill gets an opportunity to start all 16 games, assuming he's healthy. So from that aspect, if you're comparing him to a guy like Joe Flacco or somebody that you could assume might lose their job, like Bradford, basically anybody with a first-round rookie quarterback behind them, I would take Ryan Tannehill over that guy, because I think basically all the rookie quarterbacks have a very good chance of starting towards the end of the year, and I think Ryan Tannehill holds on to the job all year long. There's nobody really on that roster. They went out and got Brock Osweiler that is going to take his job. Okay, so that's, again, just for 2 quarterbacks in deep dynasty leagues. Most of the time, again, you're not even going to worry about Ryan Tannehill. All right, now, where it gets interesting is the running back. Kenyan Drake is being drafted about 41 in ADP, and then that's as of today. He can go up and down based on what the news is coming out. But as of today, Kenyan Drake's being drafted as a workhorse running back. So a lot of people like him, and a lot of people are kind of like, not so much on Kenyan Drake. Now, the reason why people like him, and this is what I'm here to tell you, is that from the last 5 weeks of the year, he led the NFL in rushing. Granted, there was a couple of guys who were kind of taking it easy based on the fact that their teams were already in the playoffs. But in the last 5 weeks of the season last year, Kenyan Drake led the NFL in rushing. So he's got massive talent. He came from a great program like Alabama. And so you got him. Now, my issue with Kenyan Drake, and I'm on the other end. I'm not really high on Kenyan Drake because I don't think he's going to be a workhorse back. I think they went out and got Frank Gore so that Frank Gore can handle nearly half of the touches. And then they went out and drafted a guy like Kalen Ballage. And I think Ballage is a very talented running back who played at Arizona State. And if you watch him on film, he's got excellent bursts, great size, vision. I'll say he's got some vision, but the point is he's an explosive running back that could be the most talented running back on the roster. I did see some signs of patience, but when I struggle with vision with Ballage, if you're like in a rookie draft or a deep dynasty draft, I saw some inconsistencies on decision making. So there's a fine line between being a patient runner like Le'Veon Bell and then being a little bit too indecisive in making a decision to hit a hole. And I think Ballage is there, so maybe he needs a year or two, but he's going to learn from a guy like Frank Gore. And I think he could end up being good, especially late in the year. I think they're all three going to be involved late in the year, which is why I'm kind of steering clear of Kenyan Drake. But then that being said, I could be wrong. Like I said, he led the league the last 5 games in rushing. Now, my thoughts of I don't really love Kenyan Drake aren't necessarily with Drake and his talent himself. It's more with the fact that the Dolphins have not really shown him the opportunity to be that they really trust him, and I still don't believe that the Dolphins trust him to be an every down back. Last year, it was Jay Ajayi's show until they traded Jay Ajayi, and then you're thinking, okay, Kenyan Drake's going to take over, and then it's a timeshare. It wasn't until the end, because they traded Jay Ajayi right at the trade deadline. It wasn't until the last 5 weeks where they really let Kenyan Drake go, and I think that had to do with an injury by Williams. So again, and then they go out and get Frank Gore. The only thing that I'm saying is that despite his ability to be an elite running back, and he's shown 4.8 yards a carry last year, I'm not 100% sure that he is the starter. And where he's being drafted in the range of guys like Henry, Ajayi, Geis, all guys that I personally would like to have over him. And this year, my draft strategy has essentially been try to get at least 2 stud running backs in the first 4 rounds, and then you can kind of wait at running back, because all those running backs is that one position that you end up finding guys in free agent every year that end up being really good for you. Now, if you're in those deeper 14-team leagues, getting a good running back is a little bit more important because, again, now every roster starting 2, so now that you're down to 28, most rosters are going to have 3 and 4 nice backups. So you're not going to get as many of those guys on free agency. When you're in those 10-team leagues, it seems like every week there's a running back in free agency because the starter goes down and the backup's not being carried over in the rosters based on the fact that the rosters are so small. So I like to get 2 elite ones. And in that spot where Kenyan Drake's going, I'd rather draft a guy like Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, even Juju Smith-Schuster, which we'll talk about when we get to the Steeler podcast. All right, so that's my philosophy. That's my thoughts on Kenyan Drake. That's my thoughts on the Miami Dolphin backfield. I don't think I'm going to end up with many Miami Dolphins in the running game. Even Frank Gore, who's going at 169, even though I think that he's going to handle a lot of the work, I don't think he's going to be as effective as Kenyan Drake. All right, so wide receivers where it gets really interesting because, like I said before, Jarvis Landry, which has been kind of the heart and soul of their offense for the last couple of years, is now gone. And with him, he's taken 160 targets, 112 receptions, and now those receptions and targets are going somewhere else. Now, the guys that we have returning are going to be Devontae Parker and Kenny Stills, right? And Devontae Parker and Kenny Stills, Parker has not been good for the last 3 years, but he was drafted in the first round, and the dude has loads of talent. So every year I kind of buy into the Devontae Parker thing. Me personally, that's the receiver that I want in this backfield. Even though Kenny Stills outproduced him last year, it was 847 yards and 6 touchdowns for Kenny Stills and 670 yards and 1 touchdown for Devontae Parker. I personally think they both have a better year this year. They went out and got Danny Amendola and Albert Wilson to replace that Jarvis Landry, in theory, production to play the slot role, but they're not going to use him the way that they use Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry was a much better talent than both of these guys that they're bringing in. The targets are going to roll a bit over to Parker and Stills. So they did go out and get a rookie tight end. I'm not touching a rookie tight end unless I'm in a dynasty draft because rookie tight ends just don't produce in their first year. Evan Ingram was a little bit of an anomaly based off of how they used him. They used him more as a receiver than they did as a tight end. So I said that last year going into the Evan Ingram thing. I kind of knew Evan Ingram was going to be used as a receiver and therefore could put up numbers the way that a tight end could. But, yeah, typically I'm going to steer clear of rookie tight ends, especially in those leagues where you're getting one tight end. There's no reason to draft a rookie unless you're in a dynasty league and you're holding 25-man rosters and you're just going to wait for him to develop. Danny Amendola is going undrafted. I probably am not. I'm assuming that's going to change as we get closer. Somebody's going to fill that Jarvis Landry role. They're going to start talking up Danny Amendola. The way that they're being drafted right now, I do like Parker. And the reason, and it's guys like Parker that I'm willing to draft those 2 running backs early, because I still think, let me give you an example. Let's take Tyreek Hill, right? So Tyreek Hill is obviously better than Devontae Parker. I would rather have Tyreek Hill than Parker if they're going at the same spot, but that's not the case. I can get a stud running back at the spot that I'm taking Hill, and then pair him with Parker versus taking Hill and then pairing Hill with like a scat back or a backup running back on a system. Like you're just not going to it works out better. Give me Parker, because I don't see the drop off from Hill to Parker as far as upside and downside, because you got to remember on the Hill side, you got Sammy Watkins coming in, upside downside, they're pretty close. Now, granted, you would imagine that Hill, he's already shown it. So there's that warm fuzzy where I've already seen him be really good. Well, Parker, if you watch college football, he's been good before. And his ability to catch the ball in traffic, like in contested catches, that's up there with the best in the league. So, again, I do like Parker. I think that Tannehill there is going to help him out. But if it's me, I'm probably going to go Stills, just based on the fact that Parker's going 96 ADP, Stills is going 132 ADP, and I honestly have them like neck and neck. I would take Parker just a little higher, but they're neck and neck. So if I can get one of those guys, I'm probably going to end up with one of those receivers on a lot of my rosters, because somebody's going to be good in this Dolphins lineup, and since they haven't been really that good yet, their names aren't out there. I mean, I think that 112 receptions is kind of like up there for grabs, and people aren't realizing that both of these guys are probably going to have better years this year than they did last year. Again, I said, so we're coming to the end of the Miami Dolphin thing. Dolphins defense, again, to stay away. I didn't touch enough on Mike Pouncey. Mike Pouncey's considered one of the top 5-10 centers in the league. So going back to the running game, him being gone, and he affects the running game and the passing game. And another reason why this offense is just not going to be very good is because he was an elite level center whenever he played, and I don't think they did enough to replace that in the offensive line. So that's it for my Miami Dolphins breakdown. Hopefully you like this episode, and subscribe or do whatever people do on YouTube. All right. Thanks. Bye.